What's up, everybody? Welcome to The Pursuit. This is episode number 9, and today I'm joined by Dr. Katie Schwartz, the founder, and do you call yourself the CEO?
Yeah.
The CEO of Motherboard, um, and she's a retired aerospace engineer,
Yes.
and we have known each other about 15 years, I
It's
think.
crazy, right?
It can't be that long, can it? No,
Probably like more than like 10, 11, but
it's like
still.
12 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were like 27, 28.
Yeah. I remember being in a class that you were teaching, wasn't the gym you own now, a class you were teaching. And it was my last class before I left for my wedding to Henry.
Wow.
And you had the whole class, every time they did like their box jump, they had to say my name or something like that.
Okay.
And so Henry and I will have been married 10 years this fall. And so we obviously knew each other before that. I met
Yeah.
you before the wedding,
So
but
yeah, about 12
yeah,
years. That's
yeah.
awesome. We've come a long way since 12 years. You
Mm-hmm.
were the first member of my gym here in Grant Park.
Yes.
And yeah, you were an aerospace engineer at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into that, let's go back because that might be where we start, kind of. But what was your dream when you look back as being a kid? Was it to be an aerospace engineer? Was it to be a doctor? Like, what was it that the first time you thought that's what I want to be when we don't have to mention your age now, in my mid 30s?
36. I'm proud of it. Um, I can honestly say I was not one of those kids that always like had a dream profession in mind. I don't definitely not. I never was like, I'm going to be an astronaut and that's how I got into this, or I'm going to, be a movie star, whatever it might be. I kind of just went through life going towards what I was good at. Being good at something, I think, gives you a bit of fulfillment, and you like it. You like people telling you how good you are at something, and that is honestly how I even got into engineering. I was in high school, really good at math, really good with numbers, really good at physics, and you know, if you're good at those things, everyone around you is going to say you should go into engineering, and so that's how I ended up there. And I was great at it. I enjoyed it. I enjoy working with numbers way more than I enjoy thinking about my marketing messaging or something with words. But that's really how I got into it. And but no big vision or dream growing up towards that.
Mm. Yeah, so you kind of had because most kids are kind of, especially now, motivated by like extrinsic motivators, right? Like what other people think. But it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like you were more, you found things that you were competent at, and you got
Mm-hmm.
in like an internal motivation from wanting to get better at that stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
which is, yeah.
Followed what resonated basically, and just I'm now I know this that I'm older looking back, but I just don't make things. I'm always like, just don't make it harder than it has to be. If I'm already good at this, let's go towards that and let's keep
Mm.
doing it and getting better at it. And that's just kind of how I ended up in engineering, and then just kept going for more engineering degrees that way, basically.
I think it's a good message for people like starting out too, because you hear a lot of people all the time be like, I don't know what my dream is, and I don't know what my goal is. What should I do? And it sounds like your advice, which has led you to, being an aerospace engineer and founding your own business, is just keep leaning in on where you find things interesting and where you find things good. And as you get better at that, you get more feedback, right? Like, don't
Mm-hmm.
worry about, well, all my friends want to do this, so I should go and do this. Or all my friends think this is cool, I should go and do this. It's
Yeah.
just find what you're good at and where you get, that motivation, I suppose.
Exactly. It's if you get panicked about it and stressed about it, just remember what you like, remember what you're good at, remember what you enjoy, and you can find something in that space. And even if that's not long term where you end up, it gives you that holding space so that you can figure out the next step. I,
Mm.
I always tell people when they're like, especially when they're like thinking about a business or where their business should go, I'm just like, keep thinking about it, but just remember what you're good at and do that now. Like, nobody says you have to stop doing what you're doing now and start something else tomorrow. Just figure it out.
Right. There must have been a time though where you were good at stuff, but you had to start taking it like more serious or realize you had to get better to get to the next level, right? Do you notice when that was?
What do you mean, like in business or in engineering?
Kind of both, right? Like, I
Mhm.
mean, I still think the thing that shaped your career has been the first part of that, right? Like,
Mhm.
um, you've been at the top of some of the best. For me, like the tip of the spear was being a professional athlete because I got to see like to be the best in the world, this is what you've got to do. You've seen and been around some of the
Mhm.
people that are the best in the world at what they were doing, right?
Yeah.
And to see
Oh,
that and start taking it serious, me like to be in these rooms, you can't just go along, right? You have to start focusing your
oh
energy
yeah.
towards it, right?
So I think that mentality is exactly what honestly was the catalyst for me leaving engineering and leaving that career. So I was in the rooms and I had a lot of really great opportunities super early in my career. And for some people, having opportunities like that propels them to that high level of their career. It gets them a really good launch pad so that they can kind of see who the other people in the room are, see what they need to do to become those people and to have those careers, and they're just, a step above everybody else around them because they've had those experiences. For me, what it did is I saw what those other people had to do to get to that level. I saw the lives they had to live to get to that level. And while that may have been their dream, and they may have enjoyed the process that they went through to get to that level in their career, I was able to find out very early in mine that that's not what I wanted the next 15 years of my life to look like. And that's totally, it wasn't right for me. It can be right for them,
Hmm.
but it helps me make that decision or get that clarity so early in my career, before I had kids, before I started a family. And I'm super grateful for that. I'm grateful for those opportunities for a lot of reasons, but that's the number one reason, is because
Yeah.
it let me take a step away and build something else before going down that path for far too long.
Well, and also, did you see I think in some ways you being in that industry just because you were good at the things that it aligned with helped you not be forced to go down that road, right? Like if some
Mm-hmm.
people have been dreaming about that job and that role and that company since they were like 10, 12 years old, they might end up on a path that they don't really like, but it's the dream from when they were younger, right?
They've already put so much meaning behind it. They put so much meaning behind that end state or that end goal that they feel like they're giving up a lot more for
Well, and they don't
stepping
even
away from
see
it.
it, right? They don't even notice that they
Yeah.
don't like what they do. They don't even notice that they don't want to become their boss because
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, no, this is the dream. The dream is to work for Boeing, NASA, SpaceX. Like
Yeah.
they don't understand that they keep see their boss every day and they don't want that job because they've
Exactly.
built that job up on a pedestal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people do that, right? Like I definitely did that with basketball. Like I might have hated playing in the NBA. You know what I mean? Like I was
Mm-hmm.
around athletes a lot and all they did was play PlayStation every day, you know? And I I didn't want to do that. I wanted
Yeah.
to be an athlete, but I also wanted to do other things. And so yeah, it's interesting that you're able to separate that. And that's not easy, right? Because you'd put how many years into becoming an aerospace engineer?
Oh, I mean, I was in college with undergrad and grad school for 9 years going down that. And so I have 4 engineering degrees in
Mhm.
total. And so it was definitely scary to step away from it. It was the hardest part was like communicating that to other people.
Mhm.
And just having to tell myself like it'll be worth it. I'm going to figure it out. It's going to lead. And I always tell people, it doesn't mean I'm not using my engineering. It doesn't mean that those years of education were worthless. Like I use those skills that I learned in those 9 years every single day with like every single one of my clients. I'm just not designing them an airplane, and that's fine. But yeah, it was a lot to step away from for sure.
Yeah. And it's the hardest challenge is It is kind of telling other people, but it's you believing it first, right?
Mhm.
Like it's you being confident enough to say, I don't need the job title anymore.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it becomes part of your identity. I'm sure you felt the same way. Being a basketball player was part of your identity, and it's what you led with.
mhm,
And even you asked me before we started, how do you introduce yourself today? And like for a while, I didn't know how to introduce myself because I was hanging on to that like aerospace engineer. I'm an engineer.
mhm.
When I fill out, I mean, when you fill out so many forms for kids in schools these days, and it always asks for some reason the occupation of the parents. I still just put down engineer because that's so much easier.
Mhm.
Just like, and it's still part of my identity, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's complicated with it.
Yeah. And it's just letting go of the mental barriers of
Mm-hmm.
why everything's not black and white, right? Everybody wants to say you quit this to do this, or but the thing that we've experienced and the thing that you experience as you just keep going, and especially being an entrepreneur, is the idea of quitting and failure and stopping something just completely starts to shift.
Mm-hmm.
There is no the only time you go backwards is if you stop, right?
Yeah.
So we know, like for you, it was you didn't know what you wanted to do next. You just knew that you didn't want to carry on the career path you were on,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so me and you started working together
Yeah.
and opened a shared workspace. Um, and you went from being an aerospace engineer, Dr. Katie Schwartz, to a community manager of a workspace,
Yeah.
right? And from the
Absolutely.
outside to explain that to people, it's almost impossible for somebody to understand what you
Oh,
did,
yeah.
especially people in your field, because, like you said, they only know where they're aiming and where they want to go. But for
Mm-hmm.
you, it made perfect sense to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I almost just didn't even try to explain it to other people because I think I was still figuring it out in my head too of like I would go through moments of clarity of like understanding why this was a great next step and other moments of forgetting what that clarity was.
Yeah.
But I always just, you know, I felt like in that time it was like, okay, it's just day by day of figuring out like what is this that we're doing? How can we make this better? What's my role? What can I learn through this?
Mhm.
I think that comes from being in school for so long. Of I always just looked at it like, you know, being, the day to day that we were doing at the workspace, that wasn't the end goal. So I was just like, what can I absorb from this? What can I take in? How can I use this as like my new launch pad, basically,
Yeah. Yeah.
for where I'm going? And I mean, we got to interact with so many people, and it truly did give me the perspective of how anyone can start their own business. You just have to have an idea, and then you just have to be able to like day by day execute on it and learn and keep growing it. And so it gave me that insight of watching some people do it well and some people not do it well. And just, yeah, it was its own little educational experience.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, so we worked on it for what, 2 years? 2 and a half
2 years.
years?
Yeah.
Okay,
two
yeah,
years
and, it took a while to get the dang thing built, right?
Yeah.
That took forever, and, I still remember being you not knowing what you wanted to do, and
Yeah.
you'd been, like, trying all kinds of things. I remember you, or just talking to a lot of people, right? And
Hmm.
seeing what their job looked like and
Yep.
and where you could use your skills. And I remember the opportunity came to me to open the workspace, and I was like, "It's really cool, but I'm opening another gym, and I got this gym.
Hmm.
Um, I bet it would be good for Katie to come and join me on this." And said, "All right, don't quit your job yet. I got something. We got something that we could work on together." And God, that was. It feels like a lifetime ago now.
It was over 6 years ago, which is crazy.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
we started it over 6 years ago,
Hmm.
and it went right up to what, like September, October 2020, was it? Sometime around there?
Something like, yeah, it was like early fall 2020. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, in that time, you got to experience so much about business
So
and learn
much.
so much about yourself and like where your skills line up, right? So when
Hmm.
you look back on that time, how do you feel about that time now?
I I mean, looking back on it, like I said, being able to interact with people was what gave me the like push to be like, I can do this too. You
Mm,
know what I mean? I think that's like the biggest thing that I took out of it that I'm super grateful for,
yeah.
because I've always had that confidence in myself when it came to engineering and technical stuff. Like I always just felt like if I had to bet on anyone in the room, I was betting on myself, because I know I can figure it out type thing. Being around other people, seeing them succeed, seeing them struggle, just mentally, without even realizing I was doing it, mentally taking notes of like, well, I wouldn't do it that way, or that was a great idea,
Hmm.
or that person's all talk, just seeing that, the different personalities of entrepreneurs and business owners. Um, and it just kind of let me figure out when I took a leap to do it myself, what I wanted it to look like
Mm,
and how I could start that. And, what habits do I need to have? What do I need to avoid doing? And so I don't know how I could have gotten that in any other setting, to be
mm,
honest, because we got to interact with so many local business owners on a given day. Like
right.
every single day, there were different people we were interacting with, which was great.
And also, we built it from scratch, right? So
Yeah.
you got to go through the whole thing. It was cool for you in my mind because you got to, apart from getting over the mental barrier of quitting your job, you got to test out what it looks like to open a business without any of the risk,
Yeah.
right?
It's
Like
so
you
true.
got to just see how it looks to start a
Mm-hmm.
business, and be
Yeah.
a part of every, because the way I work, like I was so busy, but I was like, I trust you, go do whatever you think is right, right? There was no
Mm-hmm.
like report to me on this or that. It was just like, go, you know what you're doing. And then I'll do all the stuff that I think I'm good at, which is not systems, which is not, I'll try and build the community and get people in and, you know, build the fun part of the program. You build the program, you know,
Yeah.
and it was cool, right? Like I look back on that time and for 2.5 years or whatever it was, I learned so much about the next level of where I need to go as an entrepreneur
Mm-hmm.
by going through that experience.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have no regrets on any of that stuff, especially when I see what you're doing. Like, even if nothing else comes from that, like just watching your growth and development over the last like 5 or 6 years is awesome. So,
I mean, I think I was maybe the biggest benefactor from Oxwork. I mean, my life has just changed completely since, 6 years ago when we walked into
mhm,
that church and saw, or 6.5 years ago when I first saw it as a church before we did the build out and we turned it into the workspace. And I think about that a lot in terms of like, wow, like, yeah, that didn't go where we had hoped it to, but man, did it serve a huge purpose in the trajectory for me.
yeah, I mean, you're the idea of what it was aimed at for us,
Yeah.
right? Like, so your story and your success of that time, the programs we built, the books we read, the
Mm-hmm.
podcast we did, like that's what we wanted to do. And you did it out of that. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
that's cool. It's like almost a testimonial for what we were doing.
Oh, it's a huge testimonial. I think about it a lot. I'm like, we did a lot of programs to try to help the local business owners, like you said, book clubs, just taking them through the exercise of like, what does your life look like in 5 years, 10 years? Those little exercises, they helped me so much. And they helped me get to where I am now and where I know I'm going.
Mhm.
And I think back, I'm like, oh, I hope others took it as seriously. I'm like, I hope that they, when they were there doing it too. And if they didn't, what a missed opportunity for them,
Right.
because, it could have had just as much impact for them.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like I said, you never like I look now, if there was
Mhm.
a way that we could have kept Oxwork open in the pandemic right now, it would be booming.
Oh yeah.
It would be booming. Like it was so unique as a space and as an idea and as a community. There's shared workspaces now, and I go in them and it's like, okay, it's a cool place to work.
Yeah.
But
It's
what we were
empty
doing,
though, and it's quiet.
was so different, you know?
Mhm.
And it's what I still work with business owners now, and I'm doing the same thing just online, you know?
Mhm.
But if there was a physical space, I think could have just had so much impact.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm just proud of what we did build in that time. And yeah, like Lucas has come out of that,
Mhm.
Kira has come out of that, you've come out of that. Like so many businesses have come out of that I still see. And like Lucas on, I think it was the last episode, when he first started Oxwork, he was doing $1,000 a wedding or like something like
I
that.
remember that.
And now he's putting out bids for $100,000,
Yeah.
right? Like,
As he should be. Yeah.
yeah, you were a community manager at Oxwork, right? Making like what, 2 or 3 grand a month or something.
I really think about that. What I made as the community manager isn't even my lowest price per client is higher than that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's all
But
worth it.
without Oxwork, I don't even know if you'd
Yeah.
be doing it. So
No,
like,
that's what I mean.
yeah,
It all serves a purpose.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like going back into that, you took a massive chance on yourself, but got so much from it that it's just how do you describe that to somebody? It's pretty difficult, right? Like,
Oh yeah. I think back, I'm in a fortunate place now to like look back on it in such a quick turnaround. I mean, 6 years is quick when you think about it. And I'm like, wow, I'm so thankful for like that version of me, for having that mentality of like, I'm going to bet on myself.
mm-hmm,
Thankful for my husband for, he married an aerospace engineer that had a very different life plan, for just saying, whatever you want, you'll figure it out type thing.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, it's so different, but it was such a big risk to take. But I mean, there were definitely moments where I was like feeling the risk and feeling the stress of it. But like you said, if I would have stopped, then like it would have been for nothing type thing.
mm-hmm.
So I just kept being like, just keep going. This moment will pass. You just keep moving forward. You'll be back in that better headspace soon. And thank goodness I did, for
Yeah.
sure.
And I mean, you haven't even mentioned that you were pregnant.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When I think I quit my job in like, I remember quitting on like September 5th, because if I would have stayed for at least one day in September, I could keep my health insurance for the full month. Like just, strategizing. And then I think I found out I was pregnant. And the space, like we said, the space didn't open until the following spring, late
Yeah.
spring. And I found out I was pregnant at the end of October. And so I felt bad, because by the time we finally got the space open and members, I was like, see ya, Aunt, I gotta go have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I was the one that was there to like run it for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. What the hell was I doing? Why the hell did I hire you?
I know. It's just
For
like
2 years.
that wasn't the plan, but that's how life works.
For 2 years, I had someone who was pregnant, and yeah. But it's
Hey,
awesome.
I blame the construction process. It was supposed to be
Yeah.
open a lot sooner than that.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I mean, wow. Yeah, when you even think of it like that, pregnant, quit your job as an aerospace engineer, running a workspace. But yeah, like it just showed, I think the power, like if I would go back, I would do it exactly the same again.
Yeah.
I would do it exactly the same all over again. And the thing that it leads me to thinking is just, we got to take more chances like that, right? Like your next challenge is to hire another version of you, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
just like I hired you, you've got to start taking that chance on someone else that's in that position, because you have the experience now and the power to change someone's life.
Oh
Just
yeah.
like that time, it was like, I could have just said, I'm going to be the community manager. I'll take the money and just see what happens. But when you do that, the things that me and you probably will do together in the next 10 years, we don't know, but something's going to come up, right? Where it's like, you're at the perfect position, I'm at the perfect position. Hey, remember that thing we were doing? Let's start it now for this price. And it just like
Mm-hmm.
that seed that we
Oh,
planted of me and you working together 6 years ago, in 10 years time is going to come back to something.
oh, absolutely. I think back on like, not the physical space of it, but like ways we structured programs. I'm like, oh, if I would have known then what I know now and like been able to bring this skill set into that, like,
Mhm.
oh, what it could have been and like, or what it will be.
Right.
It's always the opportunity in the future. But yeah, I mean, I think that as you grow, like as I've grown into, starting off by just doing freelancing, figuring out what that looked like, starting an actual business, formalizing it, you take risks along the way. Like the past like year, 15 months for me, I've made almost like 6 figures in investments to grow,
Mhm.
basically. Grow myself, learn skills, set my business up for the next level. And like that's a huge risk. That's money that could have gone into my private bank account and could have redone my house like I'm waiting to
Yeah,
do.
gone to your kid.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it could have gone in a lot of different places. But I know that those investments have already paid off. Like I'm coming off the best quarter I've ever had. And I would never have had that had I not made those investments a year ago.
Mm.
And so I can't wait to see what 2025 looks like. But those are all risks. Like that was making it's not comfortable making investments like that, but it's worth it. And like you said, the next investment for me is really setting my business up so that, I have the right people in place. I have some great people I work with now, but how can that even grow?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
another kind of investment.
And also like that investment might not have paid off, right?
Yeah.
Like just like with Oxwork, like it closed. I never got paid a dime from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you look back, you're like, well, that was stupid. But the amount of things I learned from it and the amount of things
Yeah.
that came from it and the amount of connections that will show up again or whatever it is, like you can't put a price on some of that stuff. So like you
Mm-hmm.
might have invested all this stuff in your business and you might have had your worst quarter ever, but
Yeah.
you're not gonna, unless you close it down and never do it again and go get a job back in your old business as an aerospace engineer, all the lessons are going to move into whatever's next, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, just the
Exactly.
fact that you keep betting on yourself is the win.
Mm-hmm.
So where are we at now? So Motherboard's the new name and the new.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So about at the beginning of the year, kind of
Yep.
February, Angela, who I know was on one of your previous episodes, she took what was probably a series of 4 voice memos
Hmm.
over the phone while I was walking with my kids one day of what my vision was for this new brand and helped it come alive this year. And I knew, I was at that point where I wanted to change the way I was doing business a bit, formalize it more. And I knew with that, I didn't want it to be associated with my name. Um, and I spent a lot of time thinking of a name. I know we talk about this a lot. Like the name doesn't matter. You just put a name out there. But for me, I was like, I don't want to do it again. I was just like, I don't want to do this and put all this money behind branding it and like promoting it and do it again. And then I was I was walking an empty stroller up the street to pick my kids up from daycare last fall and was just like spitting words in my head of just like like hyper focusing on it. Thought of the name Motherboard. Motherboard in a piece of electronics is the communication hub. It's the central piece. It can't function without it. It's what sends all the information to and from everything else. And something about being a mother itself is a very big part of my life in the season of life that I'm in right now. And it was perfect. It seemed perfect. It's what I do for people. I create the technology and the operations behind the scene, make sure that they operate seamlessly for them so that their business can run the way they want it to. And rebranded, really put everything out there in February and have just kind of gone all in on the Motherboard brand and bringing people into the business that's Motherboard instead of just working with Katie type thing.
Well, you went from a freelancer to a business owner, right?
Yep.
And it
Yeah.
took you 3 years to take that
Yeah.
leap, right?
Hmm.
Because you were just it's the next level of risk, right? Is what you did. You were
Hmm.
comfortable. You could find clients. You could do all the work. It could be associated with your name, and you'll do a great job. Now to go motherboard, not associated with Katie, build a real business means you
Hmm.
going outside your comfort zone again, right?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
actually, that one of the big steps is not naming it after yourself, right? You're e-mything this thing.
Yeah.
You're gonna create systems. You're gonna create all the things that you tell your clients that you were not doing for yourself. You're gonna start doing now, right?
Oh yeah. And I always think I'm always like, my business is so far in terms of how it's organized behind the scenes, so far behind my top clients, because I'm like, theirs looks great right now. And so like it's
And
slowly
you did
making
it for them.
mine.
You did
And I
it for
build it
them.
for them. And
Yeah.
I have a great team that helps build it for them. And
Yep.
so I'm slowly getting there in my own behind the scenes. But like you said, the risk is
But the
also,
only way to do that is to now start hiring people so you
yeah,
can work on the business, right? Like the thing that you
exactly.
teach is they need to work on the business and you'll be the system person for them.
Hmm.
You can't do that while you're doing all the work, right? Like
Oh no.
it's not
I
possible. You
hired
can't be
somebody a
both
couple
people.
months ago, and for her to be my operations lead behind the scene.
That's
And
amazing. By the way, that's amazing,
she
right?
asked me, she was just like, what's up? She was asking me the questions I would ask somebody else. And I was like, I don't care, is what I told her. I was like, I know the pros and cons of all these different platforms. I know the ways that they can be set up. And I was like, what I'm here to tell you is that, like, I've been reading Who Not How, or
Yep.
yeah. And so it's just like, I'm hiring you because you impressed me. So when I ask you, like, I need something that does this, just do it, because done is better than nothing, and
And if I
it'll
don't
better.
like it, we'll change it. What are we
Yeah,
waiting
it was like, it'll get better over time. But like, if I had the energy to tell you to like figure out exactly how to set it up, I would just do it myself, but I don't. So like, you do it, you get it set up behind the scenes, and a year from now it'll be better than it is right now, type thing. And that was freeing to just be like, take it and run with it. Let me know when you're done.
Yeah. So this is a huge step for you, right? Because the thing that you figured out is you figured out that you were really good. Number two, create the systems,
Mm-hmm.
be behind the scenes, and you're doing that. That's what your business is built on. But for motherboard to get to the next level, you're gonna have to be the number one, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
now it's time for Katie to be the number one, like the CEO, not the
Yeah.
operations director. Like that's a
Mm-hmm.
big jump, you know? It's a
Oh,
big
it's a huge
mental
step.
shift. Yeah.
That's a lot of what I've been like focusing on this year and going into next year. It's learning all the other parts of the business well enough, learning marketing strategies, things that just help grow the business, things that are not in my area of expertise, figuring out, the best approaches, the strategies for this. What do I need to know? What do I need to have set up in my own business? All of that is time away from clients. It's all time away from current clients, but time well invested to bring in new ones and to better serve new ones and to be able to have more new ones.
Mhm.
Um, I've learned a lot about marketing in the past year. And one of the biggest things about marketing that I see with my clients too is it's great if you have a really good marketing strategy, but if you can't handle those clients that you're paying to get, then what are you doing?
Mhm.
If you're not set up in a way to truly double the number of people that you can serve in a month without losing your mind or like taking time away from where you want to be spending it outside of work, then you're investing in things that are not worthwhile for you right now, or it isn't going to be a
Yeah.
good investment.
And
So
the problem is you.
yeah, if you stand in your own way.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the hardest thing to start
Mm-hmm.
realizing, right? Because
Yeah.
when you're Kitty Schwartz and people are just hiring you to do the systems, you're never the problem in the business,
Yeah.
right? But now anything that goes wrong in motherboard is your fault. And
Mm-hmm.
to go from the number two to being the number one, that's the biggest like adjustment in my mind, right?
Oh yeah.
Is when we look at Oxwork, the business failed because of me, because I was the CEO of that. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't fail because of you. right? You were just a community manager, right? And
Yeah.
like now, motherboard will live and die by you
Oh
and
yeah.
what you do and how you grow. And so, like,
Mhm.
that's a different pressure that you've now put on yourself for the last 12 months, right? Like, how's that
Yes.
feel?
It's a different pressure. It's exciting for me though, because I have the vision of like, I have the, I try to stay really rooted in where I know it's taking me,
Mhm.
where it's taking me and where it's taking my family. And I find that so exciting. And I find like each month, whether numbers are up or down, like it feels like a game, just it feels exciting to me to be in the day to day of it. And it feels really exciting for me to know, where it's taken me so far in my family and where it can take us in the future.
Right.
And when I think about bringing people on, I think about like, oh, how can I take them? They get to come along with this too. And wanting to be a place where, they like working together and they feel like, they're compensated accordingly type thing. Um, and so I think it doesn't seem scary to me. It should maybe, but it doesn't. I felt like this past year, I've just been able to stay in such a good headspace of being like enthusiastic about the journey.
Mm.
I mean, a lot of it comes back to what you always talk about too, about the pursuit, right? About, I feel grateful every day that my day can be set up the way it is and that I can have a business that's running so well as well. Um, I bike my kids to school almost every day, 2 drop-offs, like you said. Um, get up with them, do that, get up extra early before that, not because I have to, because I'm excited to type thing. Set myself up in the right mindset for the day. I work, my day can be flexible. I can set it up how I need it to be focused when I need to be. 2 days a week, I pick my son up at 2 p.m. and he's home with me. And like, I think back to like 5 years ago, I never would have thought that. I would have thought the idea that I didn't have childcare from 2 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. as like the most stressful thing in the world. And now I'm just like, oh, sorry, I can't. I pick my son up at 2 p.m. I gotta go. Like I'll catch you tomorrow type thing
Mhm.
to people. And just saying it with such ease. But yeah, I truly, the day-to-day life to me brings me so much joy where I am right now. And so I'm like, it can only get better. It can only just keep getting better.
Yeah, that's cool. So now, when we go back, what is the dream now?
I think, the dream I have, I have goals in the business that are money goals. And I feel like with women, especially, women shy away from setting money goals, talking about money, not wanting to feel like greedy or too ambitious. They focus more like, oh, I just want to be happy with my family and be a good mom. Like, I want all those things too. But, why can't this be $1 million business? I want to be able to say I have $1 million business and I have confidence that maybe not this time next year, but the year after, like it will be. And I just, and even if I just want to be able to say that for me, that's good enough for me. And I feel like I'm thankful to have been in community with a lot of women this year that feel that way too, of like men have no problem saying that. So
Mhm.
like, let's us just say that too. Like we want this because there'll be a lot of really great fallout things from building a business to that level that impact my family and myself as well. But I know that this vision I have for Motherboard and what it already is, it can get to that level and it will get to that level. And I'm really excited to do that. And that's my hyper focus.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Well, I believe you, and
Thank you.
I'm excited to watch you grow it to be $1 million business, and you become the CEO.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's not going to happen with just me doing everything.
it can't, right? I mean,
It
well, it
can.
could. I mean, it could. But they're the questions you have to answer next, right? Like the vision and the dream is there. So like the why, which is something that we used to talk about with people a lot, you'll figure that out as you go.
Yeah, I mean, like I know what I want. Like I said, I love my day to day and the way that I can set it up and the life that like my husband and I get to live. And I was in a program last week with a a friend of mine who she does this week-long challenge for like for business owners that are moms, and it's more of like focusing on your mindset for 5 days. And she talked the first day, and she was like, "What does wealth look like for you?" Because it's her like health and wealth challenge she does. And she was like, define wealth. And she's like, whole person health, whole person wealth. And it was so interesting to hear how so many different people talk about wealth. And you're in the fitness and in the nutrition, and talking about like, you know, you have these goals for your business and you work so hard, but the second you have a health problem, nothing else matters. True. Isn't that true? I mean, I'm speaking to the choir, preaching to the choir, I know. But it was just thinking about like your wealth is everything in your life. And I was said, you know, the way I answered that is that wealth to me is just everything, every idea I have that I want to be able to, that I want to do, whether it's with my family, with my parents, with my husband, in my business, I want to be able to confidently just say yes, that I can do those things. And that means I need to have freedom of time. I need to have the financial resources to be able to do it. I need to be healthy enough to be able to do those things. And so that to me is that these ideas I think of, the trips you want to take, the experiences, just whatever it might be, that there's a way to make it happen. And it's not like overstressing or overtaxing your life. And I was like, that's what wealth means to me. And so that's the vision looking forward.
Yeah. And if you do build $1 million business along that way, or if you build a $10 million business, or the business just grows to live that life, doesn't really matter, right?
Exactly.
The pursuit of that life now is what you're looking for. So, and the business will fit that gap, whatever that is. So
it will.
Rather than on somebody else's time, on someone else's clock, on someone else's growing something for someone else, you're now growing your dream, which is really cool. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up right there. And I can't wait to catch up with you again. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, I'm excited to catch up with you sometime soon and see how far we've got towards that goal.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thanks.